Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm John.
I'm Brandon.
And this is Just Saying Film Reviews. This is the film review for a movie called The Conjuring. Conjuring is supposedly based on a true story about this couple, the Warrens, Ed Warren and Lorraine Warren. Ed Warren played by Patrick Wilson, and Lorraine played by Vera Farmiga? One of those. So yeah, this is your typical kind of haunted house sort of story. Two experts come in to help rid this family of their entities, shall we say. This movie, like a lot of horror films, it feels like it really needs to slowly bring you into this situation. This film felt extra slow, and I just kept thinking, I've seen this movie before. We could skip past this part. Let's just get to the good stuff. To give you an idea, it felt very much like, what are those movies? Paranormal Activity, in the sense that we're building something, a door closes, or somebody gets touched, and then nothing else happens. The next day, everybody's fine.
The thing that annoyed me the most about this movie wasn't even the slow start, which did bug the crap out of me. It was whoever did this movie's soundtrack. Because every little thing had the most explosive score it could possibly have. Explosive score, door closed, more explosive score! And there was even one point, and this actually made us laugh, is that one point they used the dun 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 sound.
With the soundtrack, it's that typical stab note, very minimalistic soundtrack with those building notes and then stab notes when something big happens. But yeah, it just seems like the pitch was higher, the volume was higher, and what they were trying to freak you out with didn't really work. And what confused me is the juxtaposition of when, to pardon the term, shit really starts hitting the fan. The soundtrack, maybe I wasn't noticing it, but I felt like actually kind of bowed out for when things were really in their thickest. Now, to move on from the soundtrack, this film falls into the typical cliches you expect with this kind of film. It relies heavy on jump scares, and my problem with jump scares is I'm starting to get desensitized to it. Not to say I'm a tough guy, everyone gets scared by jump scares, and this movie certainly got me at times. But I'm kind of desensitized and could tell the timing because you know how like the countdown, 3 is the new 1?
Yeah.
Well now, instead of, something jumping out, it's the pause, relief, then the scare. So a lot of the times, the jump scares didn't scare me, they just kind of pissed me off because I felt like it was insulting my intelligence.
So I could easily predict when the jump scares are coming. I have not had as much experience with them, so I'm not quite desensitized to them yet. But I could easily tell, and now it happens. Without even having the experience with previous films like this. We noticed that even the title of the movie, the way that the Conjuring logo is done, it's a pretty blatant ripoff of the Exorcist logo. It looks pretty much exactly like that font. And throughout the film, you get those little, cliche points of, hey, this is a nod to The Exorcist. Hey, this is a nod to Poltergeist. Hey, this is a nod to some other film. And that kind of broke down the movie a bit because it was all these things like, okay, they're taking from this now.
I will say, though, that some of the time, some of the scares really got me because the pacing, they managed to make it this awkward way that the suspense really did work really well for this film. This movie, when I heard about it, I'd like to say I'm a huge horror film fan, and I think within the past 5 to 10 years, horror films, on the whole, have been absolutely terrible. And I was hoping this film would be one of the few ones that's starting to step back in the right direction. And to some small degrees, it was. It just wasn't the step that I was looking for. Yeah, where it breaks from the mold, I think, is where it really succeeded. It just wasn't a lot of those moments. So all in all, if you're into this kind of movie, this is one of the stronger ones. This is definitely that type of movie you take your girlfriend on a date with, or you go with a couple friends if you're the kind of people that likes to see who gets scared out of the group. It's definitely that movie to go have fun and just get a couple scares. But for the avid horror film fan who just really wants a story, some really good scary moments, that really kind of gets inside your head, you could probably pass on this movie and you're not really missing anything.
Anybody who's really just looking, again, for a good movie, in a general sense, as in a well-made movie, I will say this about the film. The shot composition and the way that the film was shot, I really enjoyed. But the other points of it don't really hold up to that standard.
All in all, this film doesn't completely miss the mark. In fact, it hits the mark, but I just felt like it was trying to reach further, and it didn't hit that. It had shortcomings that you could see, oh man, if they just would have spent time in this area, this could have been... it still wouldn't have been a great horror film. Also, I'll say this that I applaud it for. Lately, I forgot to say this for our last review on Red 2. There's some of these movies that are coming out that are 2 hours or, however long, and with the runtime, I'm like, awesome, more bang for your buck. But a lot of these films don't really have material to fit in that time, so they stretch it. This movie didn't feel stretched. It felt like they had a lot of material for the time you get.
Except for that opening.
Except for the opening. And it didn't feel like it was stretching, it just felt like they were trying to be too old school, maybe, or too...
They were presenting material that was necessary for later. They just weren't presenting it in a interesting or substantial enough way.
Yeah, it wasn't that it was,
unnecessary.
It wasn't unnecessary. It was just boring in execution. I will say this. Compared to a lot of the Exorcist type horror films we've had lately, this is by far probably the best one I've seen in a while. So, if you're into that kind of thing, you definitely want to check this out. If you're just a horror film fan overall, you can afford to probably miss this one, but it will be fun. So, yeah, you might disagree, comment, let us know, like, subscribe, whatever. But, this is just our opinion.
We're just saying.